All right, good evening, everyone. It's now 7 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome you to the December 13th meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. The board started meeting this afternoon at 4 p.m. when we had a work session on behavior intervention and supports, PBIS, restorative practices, and an update on our alternative schools. At 4:45, we had a second work session where we heard an overview of the recommendations of the local planning committee. And then at 5:15 and 5:45, we had executive sessions, one on personnel matters and the other on pending litigation. No action was taken at any of these sessions. Stephanie Horn is not with us tonight due to illness. I believe she has the flu. So that is the preliminary business. And now I'd like to ask you to join us for our traditional moment of silence. Thank you. Now could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I'd like to ask Board Member Chuck Hadaway to read our vision statement.
All Jefferson County public school students graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Thank you, Chuck. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Terry Robinson to lead us through recognitions and resolutions.
Dr. Hargens, Board Chair David Jones Jr., and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. Tonight we have the special honor of first recognizing more than 50 distinguished Jefferson County Public School students who have been selected as 2017 National Merit Scholarship Program semifinalists. These students will compete for around 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth about $33 million. Finalists for the program are selected based on their outstanding academic record throughout high school, endorsement and recommendation by a high school official, and earned SAT scores that confirm their performance on the preliminary scholastic aptitude tests and National Merit Scholarship qualifying tests, as well as their accomplishments, leadership, and participation in school and community activities. Board Vice Chair Diane Porter and Assistant Superintendent Brad Weston, please come forward to congratulate DuPont Manual High School students Sarah Frege, Morgan Horsley, Dia Mathur, Matthew Raj, Abraham Riedel Mashan, Callie Wright, and Manting Shree. Joining in the recognition is their principal, Jerry Mays. Thank you. Board Chair David Jones Jr. and Assistant Superintendents Michelle Dillard and Joe Lefford, please come forward and extend congratulations to Atherton High School student Madison Dalton and Seneca High School student Chloe Ramsey. Joining in the recognition is Principal Richard Giddig. Board Chair David Jones Jr. and Assistant Superintendents Joe Lefford and Dr. Glenn Beatty, please congratulate Ballard High School student Nolan Adcock and Eastern High School student Salas Zoller. Joining in the recognition is Principal Dr. Stacy Edelman and Eastern Counselor Craig Brown. Board Member Dr. Lisa Wilner and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Paige Hartstern, please congratulate Louisville Male High School students Cameron Fontes and Mackenzie Mulkins. If you all will please come forward. I would like to ask the parents of these outstanding students to please stand and be recognized. Next, we have the honor of recognizing the DuPont Manual High School Girls Cross Country Team in Yard Nugis. The girls cross country team won the 2016 Kentucky High School Athletic Association Class 3A Cross Country State Meet Championship. The state competition was held last month at Kentucky Horse Park in the All-Tech Arena in Lexington. The team competed against more than 20 teams and won the championship title. Team member Elena Sapienza Wright won first place honors in the individual girls Class 3A Cross Country State Meet competition. She also won in the 2015 KHSAA 3A competition. Yard Nugis won first place honors in the individual boys Class 3A Cross Country State competition. Board Vice Chair Diane Porter and Assistant Superintendent Brad Weston, please come forward to congratulate the DuPont Manual Cross Country team for their outstanding accomplishment. Team members, please come forward.
Endurance.
Joining in the recognition is their coach, Tim Holman, and Principal Jerry Mays. And I'd like to ask the parents of these students to please stand and be recognized. We are so very proud to next bestow recognition upon the Jefferson County Public School District Communications and Material Production staff for earning 11 OASIS Award. JCPS also earned the Top Kentucky School Boards Association Sweepstakes Award, which honors the highest scoring set of entries judged in this year's OASIS program. Here with us tonight to present the Sweepstakes Award is Brad Hughes with the Kentucky School Boards Association. And I'd like to ask Board Chair David Jones Jr. and Dr. Hargens to please join Mr. Hughes for the presentation of the Sweepstakes Award to the Communications and Material Production staff members. They are Daniel Kipp, Robbie Jones, Jonathan Roberts, Jason Solon, Heidi Teal, Dodie Rockledge Harp, Creative Services Manager Kim Katzman, our Chief Communications Officer Allison Gardner Martin, and also our Chief Operations Officer Dr. Michael Razor.
I will be very brief because I know you have a full agenda. This is actually my second school board meeting of the evening, and I think that even for a 24-year member of the KSBA, that's enough penance for any sins that I've made today. I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to thank both Chuck Hadaway and David Jones, my board member, for your service to the children of this community. And also to thank Chris Brady, who also sits on the KSBA Board of Directors. And everything that you all do, he does, plus about 8 or 10 more days and nights over the year. The Oasis Awards Sweepstakes Award is something we were doing 20 years ago, and I know some of you know that I've been here before to present this, but not every year. It is done on the basis of enrollment. And so the 4 largest districts in this state comprise the segment that Jefferson County is in. Every district in that state, in that enrollment-based element, has won this award at one time or another. So it's not just something that Jefferson County dials in, shows up, and automatically would win every year. So this is for materials and products produced during the 2015-16 school year, and I commend the staff. I'm going to say just one other thing to you. My wife paid one of our tax bills today, and a portion of that tax bill went to support Jefferson County Public Schools. We don't have kids or grandkids in the school system, but we know that our lives are impacted every single day by the graduates that you all produce and send out there. Communications is a vital responsibility of every school board in this state and of the school board members. And I just simply challenge you to remember those of us who are paying the tax bills, who don't have the kids in the schools, but we know of how we benefit from what you and your teachers and your staff and your administrators do. And on behalf of all of those folks, at least there's 2 of us who appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. In times of significant change and uncertainty, it is useful for public organizations to reflect upon and reaffirm the core values that inform their work. It is my honor to read to you the resolution reaffirming the core JCPS values of caring, diversity, and respect. It reads, whereas in December 2015, the Jefferson County Board of Education approved Vision 2020, Excellence with Equity, as a strategic plan to guide the work of schools in support of student success. And whereas Vision 2020, Excellence with Equity, sets forth a set of core values for the district, which includes the values of caring, respect, and diversity, and whereas a coalition of national education organizations, including the National School Boards Association, the National PTA, and the National School Superintendents Association, among others, have issued a national call to action in light of the troubling rash of reports of bias incidents and violence in schools across the nation. And whereas, as learning communities, schools, and school systems are responsible for providing students with a physical and emotionally safe learning environment, which serves as a foundation for academic achievement, healthy individual development, and civic engagement. And whereas violence, intimidation, and purposely harmful expressions of bias undercut the core mission of schools and have no place in our school communities. And whereas all students and staff, regardless of race, color, national origin, immigration status, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, or religion, have a right to learning and work environments free from fear, violence, harassment, or intimidation. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, reaffirm the core values established in Vision 2020, excellence with equity of caring. All JCPS children are nurtured as is they are our own. Respect. All students, staff, and families are treated with dignity and respect as members of a safe and welcoming learning community. And diversity. Our diversity is our strength. Difference of each are assets of the whole. We further urge all education stakeholders, including district leaders, principals, teachers, school and district staff, parents and guardians, and students to take action within their school communities to support all students and to create a culture and climate of inclusion, welcome, and physical and emotional safety for all. This concludes the resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Do we make a motion in acceptance of the resolution, Frank?
As part of the motion, accepting everything that
Okay, so
Ms.
it'll come at the
Robinson's
end. All right.
introduced.
Thank you. I appreciate your reading that
Thank you.
for me. Great. All right. Thank you. We'll come back to that.
For our final recognition tonight, we are so honored and proud to recognize two of our distinguished board members, Mr. David Jones Jr. and Mr. Chuck Hathaway, for their outstanding contribution and service to the Jefferson County Public School District. Mr. Jones has served on the Jefferson County Board of Education since 2012. He was elected to serve as their chairperson in 2015 and 2016 and served as vice chairperson in 2014. For more than a decade, Mr. Jones has worked with the Jefferson County Public Schools through civic and business groups, including Everyone Reads, Greater Louisville Project, Business Leaders for Education, and 55,000 Degrees to improve student achievement in our community. He is also a parent who had 2 children in JCPS, and he attended the Old Louisville Public School System. Mr. Chuck Hathaway was elected to the Jefferson County Board of Education in November of 2012 and began his term in January of 2013. Prior to being elected to the Jefferson County Board of Education, Mr. Hathaway served as a member of the Okolona Elementary Family Resource Center Council and the Carter Traditional Elementary School-Based Decision-Making Council. He attended Knoll Middle School, Pleasure Ridge Park High School, Youth Performing Arts School, and the DuPont Manual High School. Mr. Hathaway and his wife, Melissa, have 2 children who attend Johnson Traditional Middle School. It is my honor to introduce Vice Chair Diane Porter for this very important recognition.
It is with great honor and heartfelt thanks to these outstanding leaders that we, the Jefferson County Board of Education members, extend our sincere appreciation for their commitment and service to JCPS. To their families, thank you for sharing them to serve on this board with us. Again, Mr. Jones and Mr. Hathaway, your time, tireless efforts, and dedication is greatly appreciated by your board colleagues. Mr. Jones, would you please introduce your family members and special guests, and if you have any brief remarks, please share those with us, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Porter. I would just like to introduce my wife, Mary Gwen Wheeler, the Executive Director of the 55K organization, my minister, Reverend Kevin Cosby, who's with us this evening, and 2 of my very close colleagues, Tony Payton and Shannon Tivett, who are over there against the wall, a very important part of my intellectual framework on education. And I can't claim that they came here to see me tonight, but I also want to call out Elena Wright Sapienza, who was just up there with the Manual girls runners, and also her mom, Jean Sapienza, my cousin, and I'm grateful for what they have accomplished as well. So thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve, and I will have more remarks later in the board reports.
Thank you. Mr. Hathaway, would you please introduce your family members and special guests and any remarks that you would like to make?
Gladly. Thank you. First, my wife, Melissa. My Twinkies, my twins, Chase and Ashton, 8th graders at Johnson. My mom, Janice Hathaway. My mother-in-law, Paula Ward. And my brother from another mother, a good friend, a longtime friend, Sonny Hatfield. Thank you for being here. And I will also have some more comments in the board report time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones and Mr. Hathaway, please come forward and join us, your board colleagues, and Dr. Hargens. We would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation for your years of service on behalf of our students, staff, and the Louisville community. So if you would just join us, I think, here so that we can have a photo op.
Come on, y'all crowd.
Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. All right. Is there a motion to receive tonight's recognitions and approve the resolution? All right, Ms. Porter moves, Chris seconds, all in favor. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. At this point, it is our custom to congratulate and dismiss all of our students, parents, and any staff who would like to go, recognizing that it is indeed a school night and you all have perhaps more important things to do than listen to the rest of the school board meeting. So thank you for being with us tonight. Congratulations for all the achievements that were recognized. And we'll take a couple minutes to let the room clear.
You're right.
Yeah, let's, if Shannon is, yeah, let's catch Shannon.
Remember Tom?
All right, we're going to kick off again in about 30 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and roll. The next item is approval of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Chris moves, Lisa seconds, all in favor. That passes unanimously. We have an agenda that is approved. Next are the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Diane moves. Okay, Linda seconds, all in favor. Minutes are approved. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hargens, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Jones, and thank you for the opportunity to present the superintendent's report. An important part of this meeting has been to thank Chair Jones and Board Member Hadaway for their commitment and service to the students of the Jefferson County Public School System. You both have worked collaboratively with this board and this community to envision a better future for our students, and more importantly, a way to get there. Vision 2020, excellence with equity. You both have, with this board, created high expectations for us, for JCPS transparency, and for accountability. You have our eternal gratitude. I want to thank Mr. Geese and Dr. Kolb for their participation in Saturday's board orientation session, and thanks to Vice Chair Porter and board members Brady, Horn, and Wilner for your attendance. General Counsel Frank Mellon conducted the governance session. CBO Tom Hudson, CFO Cordelia Harden, and Bill Carroll and Jim Tenza provided the finance budget session. John Colopy, Eddie Munns, Dr. Dina Dossett, and Dr. Boyan were there to answer questions. Thanks also to Dr. Munoz and Mr. Lowe for attending, and to all who worked to prepare for that work session. Next session is Saturday, which is December 17th at 9 a.m. On Friday, I attended the Oakdale Neighborhood Association in collaboration with LMPD, and I want to give a shout out to Officer Johnny Burgraff and Semple Elementary School. The celebration was at 6 p.m. at Semple, and the cafeteria was full of families who enjoyed a hot turkey dinner and students who each received a toy from Santa. On Saturday, after the orientation, when I arrived at the Take What You Can Tote at the 15th District PTA Clothing Assistance Center on South 15th Street, there were still families there receiving much needed and much appreciated clothes. The entire Diversity, Equity, Poverty team was there with Dr. Marshall, along with the 15th District PTA President Heather Wampler and volunteers. And Diane Porter stopped by as well. So I want to thank the board for reaffirming through a resolution the values of caring, diversity, and respect. The Jefferson County Board of Education joins with no less the National School Boards Association, the National PTA, the National Association of School Superintendents in a call to action to ensure safe, inclusive, and supportive learning environments. Expanded Cabinet is a structure that we've created to actually have cabinet meetings in schools. So Expanded Cabinet happened on Monday. So it consisted of cabinet, area superintendents, and community partners. And we met at Jacob Elementary School. So thanks to Principal Michael Terry and Jacob Elementary School for hosting Expanded Cabinet. It gives our community partners an opportunity to experience Jefferson County Public Schools. Dr. Zeit's work session presentations showed the strategies included in a behavior support system that are now employed to ensure there are climates in schools that support appropriate behavior. We have high behavioral and academic expectations, and we know one doesn't happen without the other. As always, I will highlight the data dashboard, which is our board's data dashboard to keep up with data, which looks at the variables of time spent on learning through student attendance, employee attendance and vacancies, and discipline referrals and suspensions. So you can see that, again, we're trending the same in terms of student and staff attendance. And then we're also up, as Dr. Zeitz explained, with referrals because we're accounting for everything, and we're up with suspensions. So if we break that down, here's student average daily attendance rates. And again, our board has this live to be able to monitor it whenever they want to. Staff average is trending about the same. Behavior occurrences, again, are up because we're reporting everything. And actually, you can drill deeper in this dashboard, and this is about chronic absences and habitually truant students. So our board can even go deeper into a specific category. And you can see that line in those dots with the visual. We have a couple of schools on the right that are trending higher than last year at this point, but we have schools that are actually trending lower than at this point last year. Here's another way to look at the chronic absent students from last year to this year at this point, and the habitual truant students. Now let's talk about kindergarten readiness. The percentage of Jefferson County Public School students who were ready to start kindergarten jumped nearly 4 points in the last year, according to data released by the Kentucky Department of Education. The report indicates a marked increase in the number of young people who started school with the skills necessary to grasp foundational concepts. According to results of the Brigance assessments, which test for kindergarten readiness, the percentage of students who were ready for kindergarten increased to 51.6% this year from 47.9% in 2015. The data indicate that early childhood programs and kindergarten readiness camps are having an impact. For students who attended at least one day of kindergarten readiness camp, 73.8% were ready to start school, compared to a district average of 56.1%. Last year, 70.2% of those students who attended at least one day were ready for kindergarten. So according to the data, JCPS students showed improvement across the county, with 25 of 35 zip codes showing higher rates of kindergarten readiness than the prior year. The highest gains were reported in zip code 40202. In addition, 59 JCPS elementary schools improved their kindergarten readiness rates, with 22 schools showing double-digit increases. So a couple of takeaways. JCPS now has a higher percentage of kindergarten-ready students than the state, and every JCPS student group increased its percent ready, although we still recognize that gaps remain, and we're certainly not satisfied, and there's lots of work to do. So I also want to take this opportunity to clear up some confusion about an important issue regarding high school students' education. Last month, the district held a training for our high school health teachers regarding the Kentucky health standards that are required by the state to be taught in our classrooms. Sexual education and its context in a larger discussion about the health of our bodies and healthy relationships is part of those standards. A complete list of those standards is available. There has been some confusion regarding this training and misinformation that JCPS has adopted a new policy which includes information about abortion. That is simply not true. JCPS has not adopted a policy, and only information covered by standards and through the curriculum framework is being taught in the classroom. Abortion is not taught, nor will it be taught, during sexual education in our schools. It is not part of the Kentucky health standards. Each school's site-based decision-making council decides what curricular resources to utilize in their respective schools. You will have the opportunity as a parent to opt your student out of any of this instruction if desired at the designated time. The health teacher will send home a form. Students who opt out will be provided an alternative assignment. JCPS is ensuring and working that all work and resources relative to sexual education, there's equal access to information for our high school students, and is based on the standards. The work of our teachers has been on focusing and aligning curricular resources and educating teachers about those standards. So I want to give a shout out and thanks to the Minor Daniels staff. Well, I'm going to go back and say we always tell you about vacancies too. And you can see I report every 2 weeks. Vacant all year, we're down to 6. I think it was 10 or 11. And we've had some new positions added because of growth of students. And you can see that in a 2-week period, you can see that we had 20 resignations and 9 retirements. So 29 vacancies due to resignation or retirement. But what I want to thank, what I started to say was thank the Minor Daniels staff. They were our 4th Listen and Learn activity school. So we've randomly selected 11 schools. Cabinet goes and actually talks to faculties and listens to how we can support schools better. So we spent an hour with them recording essentially how we can support them better and what they need for our priorities to be. So thanks to the Minor Daniels staff for your investment of time. I also want to thank Associate Commissioner David Couch and his technology team. They hosted their IT webcast from Norton Commons Elementary this morning. So IT leaders from throughout the Commonwealth joined in to actually see the broadcast live from Jefferson County Public Schools. And finally, I want to thank the U.S. Secretary of Education, John King, and Congressman Yarmouth for visiting Goldsmith Elementary today. And I also want to thank Mayor Fisher and Chair Jones for being on the panel. And Dr. Wilner, thank you for being there as well. And Principal Renner and Goldsmith Elementary gave Secretary King an opportunity to actually see instruction going on at Goldsmith Elementary. So Congressman Yarmouth and both Secretary King really emphasized and recognized the Jefferson County Public School System for embracing the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, it was an honor to have the Secretary of Education, the U.S. Secretary of Education in Jefferson County Public Schools. That concludes, Chair Jones, my report, and I'm recommending for approval the consent agenda later in the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Hargens. We now move on to action items, of which there are two. The first one is the Comprehensive District Improvement Plan, which the board will be asked to approve. Dr. Hargens, do you want to introduce this?
Well, actually, everyone knows, and Dr. Dossett, if you want to just come to the table and talk about it, everyone knows we have Vision 2020, which is our strategic plan. But there's also something called the Comprehensive District Improvement Plan. What it does is it takes Vision 2020 and does specific action steps with chiefs and division heads that are responsible for making sure those actions happen. So that really is what a CDIP is. It's a living document. Every school has a CSIP, which is a Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. We have a CDIP, which is a Comprehensive District Improvement Plan. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Dossett?
Yeah, we've all had a chance to read it. It's been posted since Wednesday, so anything,
No,
anything big to add?
No, I think Dr. Hargens did a great job in
Are
describing
there any
it.
questions for Dr. Dossett? Chuck?
Yeah, and I'll send this to you, but I wanted to key in on just one thing. On page 6, item number 1.1.3.3P, it's the mental health, the multi-tiered mental health, along with some that have the zero funding amount. I was just curious, have we already started how we're going to identify and then find and then to apply the financial commitment to this? Because it is definitely something that I've seen as a rising need.
Right, absolutely. That's an excellent question. And with many of these strategies, some of them are continuations of work that we've been doing the past year. Others are improvement efforts that we want to expand on and build on. And so there's a new budget proposal process that central office as well as schools will begin in January to submit budget proposals, and that will feed into the tentative budget that goes to the board in March or for final approval in May, correct? And so as Dr. Hargens mentioned, this is a living, breathing document. So once we have the budget approval submissions, or the budget submissions from schools and from the district, and the board has approved the budget, we can go back and fill in some of this funding allocations based on that.
There's a lot of good work here. I just wanted to call that one out because that's a growing need that I've seen in the district I represent, and I'm glad that we have a commitment to it. Thank you, Chair Joe.
Thank you, Chuck. Anybody else? Lisa?
These are just a couple of tiny little things. One of the items was an inventory of all the school libraries, and I just wonder if that'll include looking for culturally relevant that reflect the cultures of the students who are actually in the school, if that's a piece of that library audit.
That's a good question, and I'm going to defer to my colleagues who worked on that item. Each strategy in the strategic plan has a cabinet owner, and we worked together as a team, but each cabinet owner worked on a specific action plans. A lot of that work was done through teams that work together, but on that particular item, I'll turn it over to Dr. Harris.
Dr. Wilner, I'll respond to that on behalf of our Office of Curriculum and Instruction, and I feel confident in ensuring that that will be a focus in terms of our audit and inventory for our media services, and we want to keep that aligned to Vision 2020. So thank you for the question.
Okay, and can I ask another one? So the deeper learning presentation that's in the works to communicate what project-based learning and hands-on and deeper learning and all this stuff, it's really critical. I mean, our theory of action is that if we give students relevant, meaningful, personalized learning experiences in the classroom, it's going to close opportunity gaps, it's going to close achievement gaps. And so, you know, I know that we've been having to develop this from scratch because it's really quite different from our past strategic plan. But and maybe really this is a question for you, Dr. Hargens, I just would like some sense of where we are in communicating that real shift in how we're thinking about educational experiences. You know, are some schools on board and others aren't, or is this being sort of phased in? How is that being communicated?
Well, and actually, it's being communicated every opportunity we have, and we know sometimes there's a gap between we're communicating it, but it actually registering at the school level. So one of the things that I'm doing are Vision 2020, like just sessions about how we can do that better and how many of our staff members really understand the importance of deeper learning. So I think we're actually reaching out to see how we can do that better. And Dr. Dossett, there's a website, and
we have a deeper learning website that we've designed, and it's available off of the Vision 2020 main page. But we also have a deeper learning planning committee that meets every other week, and it has representatives from all the different divisions as well as JCTA to work on planning out what that would look like in all of our systems, so that we're making sure that we're coherent in connecting curriculum, assessment, and learning experiences to the idea of deeper learning. We did have a convening this summer with over 70 people to start to get the word out around deeper learning. The principal meeting tomorrow, we will have 2 more sessions on deeper learning, and part of that session tomorrow will be an opportunity for schools to give us names of individuals and leaders in their building that are doing this work, because in fact it's happening in our schools, and so we want to really take advantage of those schools that are already leading the way in this work.
Okay, anybody else? Chris?
My concerns are regarding some of the areas of the infrastructure part of the Vision 2020 plan. And within the CDIP here, we talked about harnessing innovation, and we talked about optimizing technology usage. And part of that was to create a core team of like school technology coordinators or STCs to be able to evaluate up and coming and new technology, and also creating an innovation lab for this. And there really doesn't appear to be anything that's specifically targeting creating something along those lines, like a core group of innovation leaders or STCs, so they can come out and evaluate some of these products and then report back, or decide maybe this is something we need to do as a district, or whether this is something that looks shiny and looks nice but really doesn't have any practical applications to what we're trying to accomplish, rather than everyone doing their own thing. And a prime example of this is we had a vendor come out. They did an on-site demonstration over at Gaines about 3D technology, putting on some glasses, being able to see something in 3D. This is something that would be a prime example of what we're talking about, getting a couple of those units, bringing them to an innovation lab, and looking at that and being able to evaluate that as a district, or having these STCs come in and see how they can utilize that within the classroom. So there's that part of it, and I know that there's been some discussion as to whether or not we should take some of our existing facilities and create that, but I don't see that listed here, and I don't want to know what the status of that is, or should that be something that's listed in here, or are we making progress toward those goals?
We are making progress toward those goals. Right now, what our main focus is similar to we did with buildings, we're doing with every school regarding their technology. Sort of to see where you want to go, you have to know where you are already. So we're going to look at that, and we'll be able to see the disparate systems that we have. What computer education put on at Gaines the day that you attended is exactly what you're talking about, and that is a first step toward that. Since we don't have that innovation lab now, we just used a central location to do that. We are moving in those directions. That is something that we're working on, and you referenced it. As I alluded to tonight, we should probably look at creating technology centers around the district where they could have maker spaces and some what would be cost prohibitive technologies for every school in central locations. But there is progress being made. We have a core team that is about to roll out the assessment, and from that assessment then we'll put a group around it, the STCs and others, really similar to what we've just done with the facilities plan.
Is that something we should see within the CDIP, or is that someplace else that we should look
It's in
for
the
that?
strategic plan, and the two run, being within the strategic plan, at least me, I feel that it's out there, and we know we're moving forward on it, and we report back on our progress on the strategic plan as well.
All right, thanks. Is there a motion to approve the CDIP? Or did anybody? Okay. Chuck moves, Diane seconds. Right? All in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The second action item is the legislative agenda, the 2017 legislative agenda. There are 3 speakers on this agenda item, and they will go first before we get into the board part. The first speaker is Judith Bradley, representing an organization called Jack Be Nimble. Judith Bradley. Ms. Bradley, welcome. You'll have 3 minutes. At the end of 2.5, a bell will sound once, and at the end of 3, it will sound twice.
I'll just tell you the other speaker was to be my son, who is unable to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and also present and read his comments, if that's okay. We'll just combine them.
As long as you can get them into 3 minutes.
What's that?
Okay, as long as you can get them into 3 minutes. Will
okay.
Does that work? Okay.
We'll do our
Thanks
best.
for being with us tonight.
And I might ask for compassion. But
okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So our family has actually already experienced the impact of school choice policies, which are not always as well conceived as they might be, at least not from the perspective of the very real people, families whose lives they impact. Some people have been asking me, what is your school choice platform? I don't find a need to have a platform. I find a need to have a dialogue. And in fact, the dialogue needs to take into consideration this experience of real families and pose some questions to which I believe we all deserve answers. So for example, we know that charters serve a disproportionately low percentage of ELL and disabled students. Some actually are requiring parents in other states to disclose their child's status on the application. So how could legislation address these issues? Charters frequently rely on zero-tolerance discipline models, counter to everything you guys have been so diligently working on for PBIS and restorative practice. How can the language of the law ensure that students at charter schools are not subjected to disciplinary practices which keep them from getting what they really need? Many charter school models require commitment contracts, which impose time and participation constraints that ELL and special needs families may in fact not be able to meet. We have a significant number of these families within our district. They may not be able to choose a charter school because they can't meet those requirements. Charters may or may not provide transportation, extracurricular activities, or have in place services to support disabled populations, especially autistic and low incidence. Too many charter schools are employing push-out policies and have a high attrition rate of students perceived to be less desirable. Are we, the largest district in the state, committed to a legislative agenda which insists on full inclusion? Many of these issues emanate from a single key decision regarding the relationship of the charter school to the LEA, and that is, in fact, is it an independent LEA or is it under the umbrella of the district? This decision alone greatly informs the degree of choice that these students and their families actually do have. The proposed legislative agenda includes not a single reference to one of the key populations for whom charter schools are supposed to innovate. You propose compliance with open meetings and open records. I applaud that. That's great. But what about Title I, Section 504, and so on? If we don't start with an agenda which will take a stand for complete parity for these marginalized populations, who will? And in fact, we don't have to wait for charter schools to be innovative, right? There are endless opportunities for innovation right now in the present system with the present constraints and with the present regulations and resources. So I appreciate so much what has been happening to encourage more community involvement. I ask you to take it up a level and actually get us more involved at the onset of these discussions. I think that there are people who can contribute to this agenda. And most importantly, Jack and I urge you to include the voices of the students themselves.
Great. Thank you very much. And if you would like, can you give us that in writing?
Yep.
We have.
And I have all of the. I will send it, and I have all of the sources.
Okay. I think you give it to Ms. Gilpin,
Yeah.
and then we'll be sure.
I'll be happy to do that. I may have to email you the sources. But
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry
Thank
that
you.
Jack couldn't be here with us tonight.
He is actually here, and as an autistic student, he became and
Okay.
felt very overwhelmed. So
Okay, so he's asked you to read. But he is here present.
He's in the hall. So
Thank you. And then please go ahead.
Thank you.
We do have a policy that you're supposed to be here and not just have your statement read.
Would you?
But he
would
is.
you,
No, he is here. Please
yeah,
read for him.
Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
I'll be quick. So Jack's a junior at Manual High School. He's also a student voice team member. I'm going to read word for word what he says. I'll go as fast as I can. I have a foot in two worlds, the world of special education and the world of gifted education. Before I came to Manual, I was mostly homeschooled because we couldn't find a school that either wanted me or would be a good fit for me. That includes private schools, cottage schools, and yes, even 2 public schools, which made it pretty clear when we visited that they would rather I not go there. Finally, at Manual, I have a school that wants me and works with me. Believe me, it's hard work. These are his words. Have you met my mother? It's not perfect, of course, and there have been challenges, but Mr. Mays, Coach Vaughn, Ms. Strohmeyer, and everyone there works really hard together to solve problems, and they have a lot of patience with my mother. The thing is that Manual is the only school in JCPS that fits me. Because of stamina problems from my medications and also Tourette's syndrome, I need a block schedule. I couldn't do more than 4 classes in a day. But I also need and want challenging classes. At the same time, I need help for things like writing this. These are my thoughts and my ideas, but my mom has to help me get them down on paper. I'm worried that charter schools won't serve kids like me because in a lot of states, they seem to find a way not to. I'm not talking just about 2E kids. I'm talking about the 11,000 kids with IEPs and all the kids whose parents won't be able to get involved in the school because of their work or taking care of other people or because they don't have a car to get to the meeting. Or kids who don't have anyone at home fighting for them like I do. What kind of choice will we have? Last year, I applied and was accepted to go to a special high school on a college campus. In order to go, they said I would have to give up my IEP, which I need. What kind of choice was that? This is pretty typical of what can happen in charter schools. People talk about school choice when what we really need to talk about is what we at the Student Voice team call the empathy gap. Put yourself in my shoes. You can write regulations, laws, and policies all day long. If the policies you create don't think first about the students they're supposed to be for, then it won't matter what got written into the laws. I believe the best way to do that is through really listening to each other. That's how you close the empathy gap, and that's how you close the achievement gap too. Right now, the people least likely to be asked are the students. I'm asking you to make sure that the legislation is written so that students who don't fit neatly into boxes also get to have a choice, which, by the way, is every student. The way the laws get written matters a lot. It means the difference between choice and no choice. I want to make sure all students get what they need no matter what their school choice is. I'm talking all over the state and now nationally. My message is the same. All means all, and all includes me. Thank you for the hard work you do every day and for listening to me, one student who wants to be heard. On behalf of all those students who cannot, I wish you each a great holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. And thanks also to Jack. The next speaker is Randy Week. Please correct my pronunciation if I've said that wrong.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. You will also have 3 minutes and 1 bell after 2.5 and 2 after 3. You may begin, and the time will begin when you're ready.
I'm Dr. Randolph Week. I graduated from Atherton High School and I teach U.S. history at Manual. According to this just released actuarial report from actuaries Kavanaugh McDonald, the Kentucky teacher retirement funding level has tumbled to 35% because of legislative underfunding since 2008. A group of Jefferson County active and retired teachers, 30 of us, have therefore filed a class action suit to direct the Kentucky legislature to fully fund the retirement of 140,000 Kentucky teachers. You have a copy of that suit before you. Should this retirement system go bankrupt, the Jefferson County Public School System share of the total debt is $3.7 billion, according to David Jones, Jr. I urge you, join our class action lawsuit. Join it, and we urge the administration of Jefferson County Public Schools to urge other school boards around the state to join this class action lawsuit. This group of fearless teachers has fought for 4 years without union assistance to save KTRS. We have done the hard part. We have the top lawyer in this field as our attorney, Theodore Lavitt, who litigated and won the Kentucky Educational Reform Act of 1989, known as KIRA. I'm sure you've heard of that. We have raised approximately $20,000, but we need your help, your support, and your permission to communicate with other teachers around the state. Without this issue being addressed, it is approximately a $30 billion debt. Without this issue being addressed, the entire house of cards tumbles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Week. Okay. Dr. Hargens, is
yes, as
Jonathan Lowe going to start, or go ahead?
well, as Mr. Lowe is distributing that, what we had is a work session. Remember McCarthy Solutions? We had an hour work session to do a draft of legislative agenda. And then what Mr. Lowe did is took the feedback of the board and did a draft of an agenda, and then based on more feedback, did another draft that got posted with the board materials. So Mr. Lowe is going to go through an option that we think might be an option to have something in our legislative agenda to start with right now, but also doesn't box us in into anything. So Mr. Lowe, if you can explain that.
Sure. There are 5 items on the legislative agenda, and 4 of them really, I think, were pinned down pretty closely before. The question that has arisen is about the charter school legislation, which we know one bill has already been filed and others are expected. Coming out of the work session, there were 3 items that were identified, and those are sort of the top 3 under the charter school component of the legislative agenda, which everybody kind of agreed on the board consensus that those should be in there, to establish local school districts as charter authorizers, to permit only independent nonprofit entities to manage charter schools, and to create a pilot program limiting the initial number of charter schools that can be authorized. After the work session and a draft had been shared with board members, there were a number of responses of additional things that people were interested in seeing, and those are the additional bullets that you see below there. And what we were thinking about, because those have just been suggested as things to consider, is to kind of walk through them and see which of those makes sense to include in a final document that gets approved tonight. Our thought is that 4 or 5 key points is probably appropriate for this purpose in a legislative agenda, that in another document that is more expansive and addresses a series of issues could come at a later point. We want to make sure that we're moving forward with something that we can bring forward now, but also engage in that conversation. As you're, and I'll just, there's a little context here. As you're aware, there are lots of conversations going on with lots of organizations, the Kentucky Board of Education, KSBA, KASA, JCTA, have all kind of weighed in, and I created a document just to kind of track it all. There are probably more than 100 things that different people have said about this. And rather than trying to create, you know, an extensive list at this point to pin down a couple of the key things or several of the key things that we want to bring forward now, seemed like an appropriate way to move forward.
So can I ask for clarification?
Sure.
Have you all done the staff work on this? Is this a recommendation from district management, or are you asking the board to engage in a brainstorming and drafting session right now?
So the recommendation, to some degree, what I think a legislative agenda should be is the direction from the board to management about the positions that we should take on issues. That should be informed by staff work to inform the board's decision. But I do believe that it's the board's decision. So there would be a concern I would have about bringing forward a set of specific policy proposals on a charter school legislation that might sort of get in front of where the board's position is. So, you know, there's a balance there that's going on, but what's being shown here right now is actually the things that board members suggested needed to be brought forward.
So our recommendation, if I could just say, would be to put the language in to include but not be limited to, put the 3 things that were reached by consensus with the board. And there were maybe, but we believe that you could have 5 points easily. So if there's something that wants to move up there, otherwise our recommendation is to go 3 with what was reached consensus and include but not limited to, knowing that we can make this more extensive in the future.
Okay, Diane?
At the last board meeting, we had a work session with McCarthy Solutions, and Jonathan went through these various aspects on chart paper, and board members got to say some things that they were interested in. He sent us a rough draft of that. Then board members had an opportunity to continue to add to that. We got an updated version in the Friday update. And now I think there, as you have said, there have been other suggestions also. So you've tried to incorporate that into the document that we have before us today.
Right.
And I think the question was, is this all the words of the board, or have other staff had an opportunity to give any feedback to this? I guess that was the question.
These are all the words of the board.
Okay.
Okay. Questions, comments? Lisa?
So we had the work session, and unfortunately Chuck and David were not here, and then Steph is in here tonight, but it seemed to me, and I'll check this out with others, that there was a fair amount of consensus at that work session, that we came out with a sort of shared understanding for the top 3 for sure. So, and I think, you know, several of these other bullet points may be non-controversial for this board. So, from my perspective, certainly the 3 bullets reflect what came out of that work session. This is not, you know, we're not seeing this for the first time.
Chris?
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding is when we went through we had the work session, you know, it was kind of a little bit of a brainstorming session, just a little bit, because we didn't really have adequate time to really deep dive into it. And, you know, what was suggested is that board members provide feedback, which we did. Jonathan would pull some of those, that feedback, put it together within a document, send it out to the board members so we wouldn't, we get an idea of what's going on, and then we can update what's on the agenda. That happened to a degree. I know I sent Jonathan a whole lot of information, and I didn't quite have time to really pull that into a comprehensive document, but I also said this is the idea, so I was curious to see what was kind of being condensed. Once I saw that, I realized that there were some things that really wasn't a part of it that I would hope to have been part, so I sent that communication out to everyone up here on the board, and there's about 20 different points. I also told everyone at the time that they realized that that was a lot of different points, and it was probably not conducive to a statement, if you will, a legislative agenda statement, and because there was so much detail there. But this is something that requires a lot of detail. This is something that's going to be very impactful and will affect this district deeply, and not just this district, but districts throughout the state, and especially even Fayette County, as some of the legislation we've seen seems to be targeted toward Jefferson County and Fayette County, and even Senator Neal's bill kind of tailors that just to those two municipalities. So, I would like to see and I'll say that even with the top 3 items, I think there's consensus on that, but there's also a bit of concern on my part with at least one of the bullets where it talks about permit-only independent nonprofit entities for managing charter schools, which I totally agree with. However, I think it needs to go a little bit deeper in the fact that you have subcontractors and other management organizations that the owners or operators of charter schools can subcontract that out to a for-profit company, or that the nonprofit arm that's operating a charter school might be part of a for-profit company, in which case you still have some of the problems that some of these other states have encountered. So my suggestion was a little bit more detailed and deeper than that, so I would like to see that reflected here, and that was part of one of the recommendations I sent. Also, one of the recommendations I sent was establish local school districts as charter authorizers, but also with the opportunity for organizers to petition the State Board of Education for reconsideration if a charter is denied, right. Which is also language that Kentucky School Boards Association has also adopted. So I'm trying to get some synergy there between other organizations as well, so we're kind of have some really good standards here. So I understand the sense of brevity with these top 3, and I still like to see a little bit more detail on that, but I'd also like to see a little bit more clarity as far as the statement of should include but not limit it to the following, because I know that there's been requests from a couple of the upcoming board members here that'll be joining us in January, that they have a say in this, and I know that there was some discussion as on the January 10th meeting we can drill down and we can have more specificity about this, because I know we have a legislative breakfast coming up shortly after that. So I'd like to see some type of language in here that kind of states that there will be more suggestions, or maybe a more, as you said, detailed statement that might be forthcoming, but not, and here it doesn't really reference that.
So in my mind, it brings to mind how the Kentucky Board of Education did it. They had their legislative agenda, and then they had a separate 3-page bulleted document that had probably 25 or 30 specific positions that they took. And there are, other people have weighed in with similar kinds of things. One way that we could approach this is to, adopt a legislative agenda with a brief thing. Should include but not be limited to was an attempt to say, these are key issues we want to bring forward, but there's more to this conversation, and that there's a space to have that. I have developed or pulled together a document that sort of shares all of the things that people have said and who said them. So like there are some things that 5 different groups recommend, and some that one group recommends. And they go through governance and authorizers and finance and all of the appropriate things. My thought is to, adopt a legislative agenda, and then in January 10th, bring something forward after, input from you all in the interim to, have a separate document that addresses charter schools in particular that we could bring forward.
Is there any way we might be able to do that, but also reference that particular, because I know we originally had some language that was proposed to us that was specifically referencing the January 10th meeting, basically saying that these are some, these recommendations can be modified or will be more detailed in January. So is there some way we might be able to reference that specifically, so it isn't left that this might be the only thing that we're really talking about?
So, I mean, the January 10th meeting will be on January 10th, and the agenda of the January 10th meeting will be set before the January 10th meeting, but after this meeting. So all of that is obviously possible. Are there other board members who have comments or questions about this? Chuck?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I know in times like this where there's a lot of voices, sometimes you want to be nimble, and being nimble is quite a chore. The only thing that I would suggest is that you did a wonderful job, at least for this board member, requested, reports that were going on with the legislature pretty frequently. You kept me abreast of anything. I would encourage you to do that with other board members. I'd encourage my board members and my elected board members that are coming on in January to request that too, because it kept me in the know. And I would feel like if a board member felt like there was some quick action to be nimble to this, then you could, call a meeting by open meetings and do that. But I want to encourage you to continue to have that pipeline of information, because it was very helpful for me to see the ebb and flow of some of the legislation last year. Okay.
Linda, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Everybody? So you have more?
Well, I'm just curious.
Sorry, I'm pointing to Lisa.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would just hope that we leave here tonight with at least a broad direction to communicate to our legislative agents, with the opportunity then to drill down deeper.
Let me make a suggestion, which I think is responsive to Chris's point, but also I think it's important that we recognize the reality in Frankfurt, the enormity of the change, and the fact that this board and this organization has been a staunch opponent of charter schools, and in the new Republican supermajority world, we're showing up with a lot of baggage. To the extent we come with a 20-page or 20-point, highly detailed plan, it seems to me it would be very difficult to get anyone to pay any attention to us, especially if a lot of the points visibly come from the Teachers Association, which I think a lot of them obviously do. Better, it seems to me, would be for the board to put a stake in the ground now and just say, show me. We've been mistrustful of charter legislation. We haven't supported it in the past. If you're going to do it anyway, show me that whatever you do reflects the best practices nationwide in the 44 states that have been doing this, in some cases for a long time. And that preserves the opportunity on January 10th or whenever to come back and attack something specific. I don't think this board will have any credibility at all based on one work session going in and saying we've got a whole bunch of points that we want you to think about. So my recommendation would be, keep it general, but try to shift the burden to the proponents to say why their idea is such a good one. That's the best I think.
The actual wording.
I have another version that has
that wording
that
on
language,
it, right?
So I'll share that with you all.
It's a big long
Yes.
list.
So what Jonathan has just handed on has the wording that Mr. Brady's referring to that Jonathan suggested. So it says, note at the January 10th, 2017 board meeting, the board will consider specific policy provisions for charter school legislation based on best practices to recommend to the General Assembly.
And, you know, the first part of it, it kind of gets to what Mr. Jones was suggesting. It states, if the General Assembly acts to implement charter schools in Kentucky, JCPS believes that the legislation should incorporate national research and evidence-based best practices developed through the experiences of states with charter schools.
Yep.
So
let me,
that provides a, you know, a broad umbrella.
So let me suggest as a way to move this to decision, I will propose a motion to amend the legislative agenda to reflect what you just handed us. If there is a second, then we will vote on that amendment at the end of the discussion of the other items that are, because there are, I think, there are 4 other points on the legislative agenda, and we ought to at least flag them and see if there are any comments. Is there a second to my motion? Chuck seconds. Okay, so we will reserve that now open to discussion on the other points, and then we'll come back, and if we need to discuss this further, this particular charter school point, we will. Are there any other comments about the other points on the legislative agenda? Okay, there's a 5-point agenda, and then there are summary policy positions, which I think means we do not expect to be actively lobbying for them, but if asked.
Well,
Is
so
that
for
right?
example, just recently, in the past week, a bill relating to pension spiking has been pre-filed. And what this will do is essentially give staff and our lobbying team permission to engage to make sure that that legislation aligns with the board direction. So that could have not happened, and we wouldn't have a pension spiking bill, but we do, and now we have your permission to kind of engage with that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Doesn't look like there are any other questions, so there's been a motion.
One point of discussion, just real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to clearly say that the 20 points that I was recommending were based off Annenberg standards.
Yes.
So just want to
there are
understand
a lot, but there are hundreds of points that have been floating around. That's my point.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? 3, 4, 5. Okay. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-1. Dr. Wilner opposing. I think we have adopted our legislative agenda, which concludes the second action item. Now we move on to our one and only information item. Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Which is recognition of AFSCME Council 962. There are 2 speakers on this agenda item. Excuse me one moment while I find my speaker list. The first speaker is Sue Foster. Ms. Foster, thank you for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5, and then 2 after 3. Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak concerning the nutrition service employees and their desire to join the AFSCME union. As I look at this group of men and women who represent the district, I am reminded of the value of their jobs and how it is far greater than any written words on a job description. These are the very men and women who rise each morning while many of us are still enjoying the comforts of our bed. They bundle up and head out into the coldest of mornings to ensure that the children of JCPS receive a healthy breakfast, nourishing lunch, and in many cases, a filling dinner. To a homeless child and many others, this JCPS role group represents the difference between comprehending and building a foundation that offers a promise of a better tomorrow, or sitting in a classroom being consumed and blinded with hunger pains of an empty stomach. When I think of the nutrition service employees, I'm often reminded of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who once said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those that have much. It is whether we provide enough for those that have little." Even though we work diligently to provide for the children of JCPS, they are the employees who work 5 hours per day and often must hold a second job in order to provide for their own. The majority of these employees are JCPS graduates. They are career readied, and dedicated employees. They desire to be treated fairly, to be provided the same job securities of all JCPS classified employees, and to receive the same representations of due processes of all JCPS union members. They are the only roll group of JCPS classified school location employees who are not represented and protected by a union organization. They wish to be a valued roll group, to be respected by all, to be held in the same high regard, and to be appreciated for their many talents and sacrifices. They are hard-working, educated individuals who are pleading to be treated equally and to have the same support opportunities as their fellow JCPS classified employees. They are committed to becoming a unionized group. They have worked tirelessly and have taken every step possible to hold themselves to the highest level of integrity during this journey. They are JCPS classified, they are JCPS strong, and they deserve to be a part of the AFSCME family. In closing, I leave you with this. The story of the labor movement needs to be taught in every school in this land. America is a living testimonial to what free men and women organized in a free democratic trade unions can do to make a better life. We ought to be proud of that. And that's Hubert Humphrey, his speech from the Minnesota AFL-CIO Convention, 1977. Thank you.
Is that Annie McGee?
Okay, Ms. McGee, you have 3 minutes. One more.
I'll be way faster. Okay. Hi, my name is Amy McGee, and I've been with Nutrition Services with JCPS for almost 10 years. I've worked within Nutrition Services for 15 years, including 4 years with Department of Defense schools and 1 year at a public school in South Carolina. As surprising as it is for me to say, I have never been a pro-union person until I worked within JCPS. I've always believed that if you work hard and have a good work ethic, that you will be paid and treated fairly. I've worked jobs within several states while my husband was active duty Marine Corps and have never felt the need to be in a union. This has not been my experience with JCPS. I feel we have little to no respect, job security, or a safe work environment, and we are underpaid because we are classified incorrectly for our jobs. I'm asking that the school board and JCPS as a whole will grant our request to join AFSCME. We are diligent, hardworking employees who have followed all the steps to become union, and we feel we have the right to be represented just as all other JCPS employees are. Thank you for your time and consideration on a matter that is important and deserves to be accepted as a right that is afforded to almost all JCPS employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. All right, Dr. Hargens, do you want to introduce this item?
Yes. Actually, Tom Hudson, we're going to do the information item, and I think what Mr. Hudson is going to present is some good news, and Tyson Gorman is going to join as well, right, with members of AFSCME. Would you, Tom, do you want members of AFSCME to join you? They're part of his presentation.
Yeah, they have notes.
Smile for the camera.
Okay, Mr. Hudson.
Good evening, everyone. And this is an unusual procedure that we've done here tonight, and we've been able to reach an agreement with Mr. Gorman's help and counsel on the other side. So this is a proposal that I think brings us all together. That's why we're sitting here together at the table tonight. And I'll turn it over to Tyson to explain the details of what's proposed.
The resolution that's been presented to you this evening basically lays out a path that we hope to get on to create a mechanism whereby after some negotiation between the district and AFSCME officials, AFSCME is in a position to essentially take over or to step into the shoes of the nutritionist under the existing nutritionist contract for the rest of its duration. That contract is scheduled to expire in June, as are most of the labor contracts that we have with our various collective bargaining entities. Basically, we'll be setting up a bridge contract to get to that point. We will come back before you with the details and specifics of that contract. We'll be asking the board to approve that bridge agreement, and then also that a bridge agreement will be put out to the nutritionists for them to sign off as well. We think it is important that we have buy-in both from the board once we reach some tentative agreement, and that also the nutritionists are given an opportunity to through an independent vote, indicate whether that is something they are in fact interested in as a group, and obviously the majority vote will rule in that instance. So the resolution that's before you basically is the initial step in that process. It recognizes that the current leadership of the nutritionists have come to us and indicated they would like a change. They would like the change to be to AFSCME representing them, and it authorizes both parties, both staff and AFSCME, to begin negotiations to again reach this bridge agreement that I mentioned. So that's the resolution that's before you.
Okay. And do your colleagues or your counterparties want to say anything?
Yes, we would like to.
Yes.
Yeah, we were here a couple weeks ago, and with some slow starts, we've been able to, we feel like, come to the table with the district. You know, we're here today to see it through. These workers right here are asking for no more than what the local previous to them that organized with AFSCME. I'm talking about Local 4011 back in 2000. Same process was used, same process we use all over the country. Went out, organizing drive, collected cards, presented it to the board, which is the body who has the authority to give recognition, and then they were recognized. You know, there was no smoke and mirrors on our part. Very straightforward when we come and presented this, and we just want recognition for these hardworking JCPS workers. And not only, I mean, we hope to represent them for many decades to come, just like we do the, it's been some 17, 18 years now that we've represented Local 4011, and we wish the same for these workers.
And if I may just add, we are 851 JCPS nutrition service employees who play an important role in the lives of our JCPS children throughout our district. Last year, we served 7.5 million breakfasts and 12 million lunches, which makes 45% breakfast and 72% lunches served to our children on an average day. We are the only JCPS unit not operating under a collective bargaining agreement, and then we are hoping that today that this changes. We reached out to AFSCME, who has been very clear on how to have our voices and concerns heard. It has been very challenging lately, but we have faith that the district and our school board is now prepared to allow us to be recognized as AFSCME members.
So what we promised was that we would meet, and Mrs. Garcia and Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gorman and the attorney from AFSCME met with Mr. Hudson. So they have worked out the words in the agreement. So management is recommending, if the board so chooses, to actually accept this for first reading. It has now been looked at by both sets of attorneys, so that's what we're recommending, that it would be good to approve this for first reading if the board wants to, or we can bring it back in January for first reading. We intended this to just be an update, but everybody worked hard to get us to the point where we actually.
Oh no!
So let me ask.
We didn't understand this to be an update.
Hold on a second. Let me try to clarify the process a little bit. It sounds from the presentation like the discussions have gone further than Dr. Hargens, you believed they would by this point. And I think the document that we have in front of us calls for an action by the board at this point, which is, if I understand it right, essentially to approve the first step in the negotiations and in the collection of the
recognition.
cards as what you described. But this is and Tyson, you help me out, this is a necessary step to get the process going, and we need to sign off on this document in order for that to occur. Do I understand that right?
That is correct, Chairman Jones. We have a situation where, in light of the fact that the nutritionists do have an existing association, they feel like they need recognition to sit down at the bargaining table. ASME is reluctant to sit down without the board's blessing to sit down at the table as representing those folks, since as we look at it at the moment, there's another agreement that says they are basically represented by other people. Now, those people
We
have
were
indicated.
represented by ourselves.
Correct.
And we are not a bargaining unit. This was never set up to be a bargaining unit. It just fell into
It's an association.
That. It's an association for professional development
right.
education for our school nutrition service employees.
And I apologize for the procedural mumbo jumbo, but I just want to make sure the board understands what we're being asked to do.
Right. This is basically
you've, as our counsel, and Mr. Hudson, as our chief business officer, you guys have completed your work. You recommend this step to make the transition from the association to a bargaining unit. Everything is kosher as far as the labor law, the procedure. And Dr. Hargens, is this, you're content to go along with this?
If I may add,
absolutely.
I apologize. If I may add, we completed our work a month ago. We brought our name, our union cards and everything a month ago at the last board meeting. We were here and thought we were going to be at our first reading. And there was a lot of conversation, which we appreciate that the board talked to us and Mr. Tyson, the attorney. So we, a month ago, 2 weeks ago, the last board meeting, I apologize, we thought we were at that point. And we also had a reading, I thought we were having, it was mentioned we could have passed the first reading and go to the vote at that meeting.
Great. I appreciate that. We got to listen to our own counsel. So are there other comments from board members, other questions? Linda?
Well, just wondering, does it make a difference if this is the first reading, that we approve the first reading tonight and come back for a second reading? Does it make a difference in terms of
if I may add, yes, if I can comment on that. I do the due process meetings. I have never been trained as a JCPS employee or a union rep to do due process meetings. I go in and represent our employees. So yes, it does make a difference because they're not getting the correct representation. And that's been for 3.5 years I've done that. I apologize. I have done that for 3.5 years. And the only thing I've done is by just communicating with staff and trying to do my best to represent the employees. So yes, it does make a difference that this is our first reading because there are due process meetings that happen daily that pulls me out. I'm a cafeteria manager at Seneca High School. My job is to feed 1,600 lunches throughout our cafeteria, myself and Goldsmith, Janice Collins manager. So there is a big difference, and I feel like I wish it would go ahead and go through.
All right. Tom, would you be clear? What are you asking us to do?
I think if I had my way about it, I'd have you vote on this in approval. I mean, there are steps in here that they have to go through.
Let us get our work done. We would like to deal with this, but we have to understand it. Okay, the board is not going to be bullied into taking an action, but we would like to understand it. We would like to understand what's happening here, and we are willing to deal with it, but we have to understand what's going on. All right, go ahead, Tom.
So it'd be my recommendation that you vote on this tonight, and you're voting so that they can be recognized, so that we can start the process of doing what needs to be done. It's that simple.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, please explain again. I couldn't hear why you said you answered Board Member Duncan's question. I want to understand the urgency.
We have due process meetings to where if there's a individual that is having their due process, having some kind of disciplinary action, they call him representation. I'm not certified. I've not been trained to do this. I've done this for 3 years. It's not fair for our staff members to have someone to go in and to represent them that does not have the union behind them, does not know the proper training. I have used my knowledge at another previous job, plus working with staff, nutrition service, principals, employee relations, to try to best represent that employee. So as the association, which is supposed to be just professional development association, and somehow years ago this was pulled into a bargaining unit. And that's why I feel like we really need, I would really appreciate it if we could go through with it so that they can have proper representation. And we could get started on this as well as our agreement for our next contract.
Thank you. That's helpful. So you're saying the due process meetings happen almost daily?
Yes.
Do they have a seasonal time, or are they pretty consistent throughout?
It's pretty consistent.
Okay.
I get called out.
In between breaks too of the academic year as well?
Not during the academic year. It's just usually whenever employees are at work. And I'm a cafeteria manager at Seneca High School, so I'm pulled away from my kitchen as well and my staff to go out and represent our employees throughout the district.
Thank you.
Do you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to clarify what Ms. Duncan was saying, because Ms. Duncan, you asked about we should do it tonight rather than wait.
Right.
So I think Ms. Duncan was in support of what you were saying.
Absolutely. I was just wanting you to explain the urgency of it.
Yes,
so.
and thank you for letting me explain that.
So just procedurally, as I understand, all the people at the table are recommending the same thing. You're asking and you're recommending the same thing. So procedurally, would we need to have some a motion to move this to an action item and to waive the first reading?
Exactly. To move it to an action item and to waive the first reading both require a 2/3 vote, which would be 5 votes in favor.
Okay, so Lisa, is that your motion?
I'm making that
Is there a
motion.
second?
Second.
Linda seconds. All in favor? Okay, thank you. So Donna, you can now, what do we do next, Frank? I mean, it now gets signed and moved on, right?
That motion, I think,
was to move it.
to change the agenda.
Oh, that was,
but-
okay, motion to change the agenda. Now there is a motion to vote on this action item. Lisa, do you move that also? Linda, you second it also. All in favor? Also passes unanimously. Thank you. You have what you requested.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's take 5-minute break, and we will reconvene at 8:43.
understand why that happens.
Yeah.
Our communication things
Okay. All right, let's. We're
good with
it. All right, let's get rolling again. Our next item is the consent calendar, which the superintendent has previously recommended that we adopt. Are there any items to pull down on here, Linda?
Well, the only one that I want to bring down is S.
F as in Frank?
S as in song.
S as in strong.
Yeah.
Okay, magnet education?
Yes.
All right, are there any others? Dr. Hargens, is board policy on magnet education time sensitive?
No, it's not.
Okay, we'll kick it to January. So that one is removed, and okay, is there a motion? Do you have a motion to remove it?
We don't need to. I just wanted to comment on it because I've talked about it before, and I just wanted to make a comment, and then I'd like for us to go ahead and vote on it.
Okay, can you comment briefly?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
I was, I remain opposed to the concept of exiting, and I'm consistent in that. However, I recognize the need for approving updated guidelines for our magnet schools, and I also recognize that there was a good faith effort to try and make sure that exiting was not the first option on students, that it was something that there was established a real process so that maybe we can save more from that. So, exiting is the tool that charter schools use to keep their trajectory moving upward, their scores and moving upward, because they have to compete with the public schools, and they want to make sure they outscore the public schools to stay open. So, it's a concept that they use, and we're gonna be seeing that on a big scale. But I just wanted to say I have given this a lot of consideration, and I will support the changes in the guidelines for the magnet program.
Great. Okay, thank you. So would you like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yes, I move that we.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Diane seconds. All in favor? Okay, the consent calendar passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we come to the board planning calendar. The board planning calendar. Any comments on the planning calendar? Linda?
Well, I'm just wanting to make sure that we get on there by March, that we will have we were going to consider our board meeting calendar, that board meeting schedule, and that should be on there in March. And by May, that we have our recommendations from the committee on administrative salary and how we can separate those, because I know that just needs to be done. We need to have that on the calendar to know that's a target for us. And I forgot my glasses, so I can't read what I wrote on here at the top. There was one more for March. Oh, facilities. We're having that in March. We have the facilities report. So those were 3 things on that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think we previously flagged that, on or about January 10th, there will need to be another legislative agenda update.
Yep.
So, good. Is there a motion to approve the board planning calendar? Linda moves. Diane seconds. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we are on to board reports. Board reports. Do we have any board reports? Linda?
Well, briefly, KSBA conference last weekend, some outstanding sessions, but one in particular that I attended was the session on to arm or not arm staff in school buildings, and it was so it's just a very thoughtful discussion of what districts are considering about this, and I know it's not something that probably we're going to be considering, but it was wonderful to listen to the discussion around that, and and it really kind of reminded me of our wanting to be sure that we include discussion about metal detectors. Then Leadership Louisville, we met with the Leadership Louisville team, Chris and David and I did, and got a chance to break up in groups and speak and answer questions about our district. And I just love the questions that we get, and I think there's just such a concern about how do you recognize whether a school is right for your child or not. I mean, we heard that often, and it is a challenge for our parents, and we have to keep remembering that. And then I think that's the main stuff, so I will stop right there.
Okay, thank you. Chris and then Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to also, on top of mentioning what Member Duncan just talked about, the Leadership Louisville meeting that we had over at Doss High School. Got to have a very meaningful conversation about that, and that was really great. I also want to mention on top of that, the Power Forward Summit that was this past Friday. That was sponsored by Kentuckiana Works and 55,000 Degrees. That was a very informative summit. The superintendent was there. Don't know if anyone else really made it. I'm sorry, Diane, that's right. Member Porter, Vice Chair Porter was there, and I know some of the staff. Dr. Marshall was one of the people that presented, as well as I know Dr. Polio from Doss High School presented, as well as some other folks from the JCPS were around. But I found it a very informative summit, and I do want to extend my appreciation to those organizations for putting it on, and also extend, or at least put out a shout out to the fact that one of the keynote addresses was by a gentleman named Peter Capelli from University of Pennsylvania, where he's talking about meeting the human capital challenges of the business community. And I will tell you that I found that particular discussion very enlightening and informative, and also very accurate and aligned up with my own personal postgraduate experiences. That is one of the first times that I've actually heard a speaker talked about the market in a way that lined up with my experience coming out of college. So something that perhaps we might want to take a look at. I'm not sure if those materials are online, or it will be at some point. I believe they will be. So it's worth a look, worth some time to go out there and check out those particular sessions, in particular that particular keynote. And I just want to say thanks again for all those that had a hand in putting that together.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
So I did submit a report in writing, but just want to highlight two quick things. We have a lot of people who come and advocate from the community in front of this board, and Tom Moffitt is someone who has advocated on behalf of educational equity, civil and human rights for decades for the Jefferson County Public School Board. And it was at the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression Unity Dinner on Saturday. He was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award in the company of about 5 generations of his family. So that was quite a meaningful event. And I also have mentioned to you guys that I have been attending the Mayor's Cradle to Career Cabinet. As part of that, I've also been attending a By All Means project meeting. And I just wanted to report out from that that the Say Yes initiative that the school board has signed on to has been, the timeline for Louisville's consideration has been extended. And there's a little more detail in my report. And if people have questions and want to follow up with me about that, I'd be happy to advise.
Great, thank you. Diane, do you have anything?
Just quickly, at our last meeting, we said that we would report, our board reports would reflect bridging that we're doing with the community. I had an opportunity to attend an event at the African American Heritage Center that was sponsored by Kentucky One Health. It was a day-and-a-half summit talking about health in Jefferson County and the importance of health in every community, and they are committed to that. It was a great summit, but in the midst of the summit, you know, things happen for a reason. I had an opportunity to meet a parent of a student that attends the Carter G. Woodson Academy in Lexington. And she talked to me about why her son was there and that he was struggling, but he was now there. He was successful. He had spent the summer in a Verizon camp, and that he was excelling very well. She has an opportunity to be promoted on her job, but she intends to stay in Lexington because he is being successful in school. And the reality of it is, we said, the question was asked when we talked about the Carter G. Woodson Academy, who could attend, and we said all males could attend. I would just like to say that the mom did not look like me, and she was very excited. So I'm establishing a relationship to her because it is about helping all students. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Okay, Chuck and I are attending our last board meeting as members of the board, so he and I may take slightly longer in our reports, but Chuck, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Jones. I am honored to have served in this. There has been a spotlight here, rightfully so, because the work is important. It's odd for me to sit in a spotlight. As a former YPAS student, I liked it, but in a public service role, sometimes it was a little bit awkward, but that's just a personal feeling. It is important. What we do here for our children and passing the baton to them and lifting them up is extremely important. I've always appreciated the one-on-ones more. I felt like that was an atmosphere that I could work well in. And I hope that cabinet, central office administrators, principals, teacher leaders, and bus drivers can testify. I have a lot of gratitude for the encouragers early on. 2 Mikes, 2 Davids were really involved with me in getting involved. The early guidance of Carol Haddad and Debbie Westland were very helpful. My current peers here on the board, I respect them highly, probably more than I ever articulate, but I really do. I'm so thankful for my family. Some of you all that had stayed this long got to see some of them. My wife, Melissa, and the kids. The late night talks, my wife always waited up till I got home, and she wanted to find out, how things went, and I was just blown away that she was that interested. I missed some ball games, which is tough, but it was the right thing to do, and I got the down low of what happened in the games for my kids. I even appreciate the community voices, even when they cluttered my inbox till I couldn't keep up. The passion pleas that people have for their children, the hasty threats that I've had before because someone is very angry, or the unexpected stops at the neighborhood store or the restaurant. Those things happen when you're a school board member, but they're good because what they tell me is people care about their children, and I knew I was in the right work to hear that. My favorite core value, I always said at community conversations, and Dr. Hargens heard me say it many times, is the caring core value that all JCPS children are nurtured as if they are our own. Whether we're in nutritional services, whether we're an administrator, whether we're on a bus driver, if we capture and embrace that core value, then great things will happen for our children. I've tried to wear that parent hat the most times that I've been here because I have 2 kids in JCPS. That's what brought me here. Students should always be first, even when the volume levels ratchet up with passionate voices. We should always remember students are first. I want to say I admire the teachers, that very noble profession that I see day in and day out when I get to go to the schools and hear their compassion about what they have for their children and how much they care about them. Here's my hope. Here's my hope for JCPS. I hope that we are constructive in our criticism. JCPS has a big target on their back most of the time in the public, but I hope we're constructive and not just attacking in our criticism. I hope we are appreciative in our assets. Our assets are our people. I've heard Dr. Hargens talk about this as a people-driven company. Whether you're a bus driver, a custodian, a nutritional services worker, and I'm not running for office, so I'm not panning to you, a librarian, a teacher, a coach, a principal administrator, the superintendents that I have worked with, the assistant superintendents and the superintendent. I hope we're appreciative of that as a community. I hope we're collaborative in our care because this is a great mission to lift our children, and I hope that we continue to invite others to the great mission. I hope we're intentional in our impact, that we're very strategic. Our Vision 2020 is a good roadmap for all of us to embrace. I hope we're diligent in our decisions and not back and forth. I hope we're transparent in our technique as always so we can build trust. And I hope that we're relational in our resources. I can't overemphasize as much as I've thought, being a board member, if we could get the resources, the monies to the classrooms, then our children will do better. As a son, I don't know if this is a natural psychological thing, but as a son, I always tried to impress my father. And I've had 2 fathers leave my life this year. I had a father-in-law that passed away in March. And was a second dad to me. And then my father passed away a few months later. Tough things to go through. But I will tell you this about Chuck Hadaway. One thing that is in this cosmic goo of who I am is I have a very sincere, it's fractured, it's imperfect faith. But one of the things I've always wanted to do is to impress my Heavenly Father to heighten whatever He was doing in lives around the world. And one of the things that I recognize in my own personal worship and faith is I recognize that the character of my Heavenly Father is kindness, it's respect for others, and it's compassion for children. So in my time here, I hope that I have done that. Thank you. My hope is bright for the future of our children because all of you will care for them and nurture for them as your own. Thank you.
Well, I chair this meeting, so I created this box of having to follow Chuck Hadaway. I hate to follow Chuck. He's so eloquent. He's so sincere. He's so nice, and he has been an important piece of the glue that has held this board together. So thank you for what you've done. It's been an honor to me to serve on this board and to chair it for the last 2 years. Everyone at this table agrees that nothing's more important than educating Louisville's children. And I've learned from and I value my relationship with each one of you up here. It's also been a privilege to serve the students and the families who are JCPS's customers and the 16,000 employees who serve them. And finally, and certainly not least, to work with some great executives, some tremendous analysts, and some unsung heroes in this administration. Now, one of the realities of chairing a board is that you rarely get to speak in your own voice. And Chris, you'll probably learn a little bit about this, but like the other members on the board, you only have one vote, but you have the added duty to seek and enunciate consensus or compromise among your colleagues, and to voice the majority view even when it is not your own. So for the past 2 years, I have rarely spoken in public in my own voice on the school board. And since my term as chair is now ending, I'm going to do that now. Over the last 4 years, I think JCPS has made some real progress. Importantly, this board and the colleagues who were on the board from 4 to 2 years ago allowed the superintendent to be honest about the appalling reality that less than half of JCPS students obtain proficiency during their time in our schools. We helped her create a strategy to dramatically change this reality by personalizing education to the needs of the child. And even more important, because this is a big organization that runs on money, we empowered the superintendent to create a plan to fund this strategy without relying on empty dreams of new state or federal money or immoral imaginings that our teachers can get better results without more resources and more training. Dr. Hargens' funding plan responded to the many outside audits that criticized the district for spending too much money on administration and provided great detail about where this money sits in our budget. And this plan is right here. With apologies to my heart surgeon who told me not to lift more than 10 pounds. This is a salary study, the first this district has done since 1979. And it identifies $60 million that could be moved into our classrooms with no layoffs, no firings, and with teachers continuing to get step increases and annual raises so their pay stays competitive. Let me repeat, no layoffs, and teachers continue to get raises and step increases. With $60 million, JCPS could hire 1,000 new professionals, certified teachers, nurses, social workers, counselors, psychologists. Or we could hire 500 new professionals and make a fabulous investment in training. We could radically change the student-teacher ratio in the schools where kids need it the most and provide the other professionals who would enable teachers to teach instead of play social worker or provider of school supplies or disciplinarian. There is $60 million in the book. It's all here, a line-by-line listing of where we find the money in the existing budget. No new money from Frankfurt, no charity from Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, and no extraordinary tax increase. This is about current JCPS money, which this board has the power to spend on the kids who need it. All that is needed is the will to restructure our ancient compensation system for the benefit of Louisville's kids. This won't be easy because it will require moving money to support kids who need it rather than looking out for the wants of adults who band together for the biggest piece of the pie they can grab. The adults have their voice through their unions. Our struggling kids, on the other hand, have much less political clout. Their only hope is that this board will act to restructure this school system so that it serves them far better than it does today. You, my colleagues on this board, have been handed the knowledge of how to get funding so that you can direct it to its rightful and most urgently needed place, which is the classroom. The work on finding the money has been done, and it is right here in the book. Mr. Hadaway talked about faith in a different book. I offer you this book right here, all 1,000 pages of the salary study, which shows where there is $60 million. Now, the voters said they want change, and I wish you, my colleagues, the courage and the discipline to deliver the success that all JCPS students deserve. Thank you. Wow. All right, thank you. Now, it's time for others to have their say. We have 5 speakers on non-agenda items, which is our concluding item. Let me get this stuff out of the way. I made it. Okay, persons requesting to address the board on non-agenda items. The first is Dr. Kendall Purcell. Dr. Purcell, are you with us tonight? Thank you. Great. While you walk up, I'll just tell you you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. 1 bell will sound after 2.5 minutes. Sit. You're very welcome to sit there. And 2 will sound after 3 minutes. Thank you for bringing us materials and delivering us to the board secretary, and you may begin when ready.
All right, great. Good evening. My name is Dr. Kendall Purcell. I'm a pediatrician, board certified, as well as an assistant professor here at the University of Louisville, where I've worked for the past 3 years. As part of my practice, I weekly treat adolescents with sexually transmitted illnesses, such as gonorrhea and chlamydia, most frequently.
Can you speak a little closer into the mic?
Sure.
Great.
I have diagnosed way too many teen pregnancies already in my career, and I often go on to take care of both the teen mom as a patient and also her baby. I'll never forget my first year of practice where I diagnosed a teenage girl with HIV that was sexually acquired. I remember leaving the room after sharing that diagnosis and crying in the hallway. I was sad because her life was irrevocably changed, but I also felt so upset that this was something that could have been prevented. This teen was a foster child raised in group homes. There was no one to teach her about her body, self-esteem, healthy relationships, and of course, safe sex. I'm here today on behalf of my patients to urge you to adopt comprehensive sex education guidelines as part of JCPS practices. Guidelines that could have helped prevent my patient from contracting a life-changing deadly disease. Comprehensive sex education is one of the few tools that we have to prevent, and I stress prevent, the spread of STIs and teen pregnancy. Study after study has demonstrated that comprehensive sex education can prevent STIs and it can prevent teen pregnancy. It doesn't increase sexual activity. To the contrary, studies have shown that it can actually delay time to initiation of sex. I know that you have recently heard testimony from another practitioner, an anesthesiologist with obstetrics experience, who disagrees with this view. I'd like to note respectfully that he doesn't work with adolescents every day like I do. I'd like to also point out that he quoted evidence from the American College of Pediatricians. I had actually never heard of that organization until I started preparing for this talk. It's not shocking, given they only have 200 members nationally and have been labeled a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. I am a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, which is a governing body of pediatricians nationally and has 64,000 members. AAP guidelines strongly support developmentally appropriate, medically accurate, comprehensive sex education. I don't need to remind you of the power of education to change lives. You all talked about it tonight. But to me and my patients you serve, education can actually save their lives. So I urge you strongly to adopt comprehensive sex education guidelines as part of the Jefferson County Public Schools practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, Dr. Randolph Week. Dr. Week, I believe he spoke earlier. Good. I think maybe he had a chance to say what he wanted to on the agenda item portion. Next is Dr. Robin Weiss, or Weiss. I apologize if I pronounced it. Which way? Weiss. Weiss. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5, and 2 after 3.
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to address the board this evening. I am a JCPS graduate. My name is Dr. Robin Elise Weiss, and I'm also the parent of 9 children. And yes, I do know what causes that, thanks to sex ed. I work as a professor and as an author in public health, focusing on maternal child health. And one of the things that I think is important for you to understand is that the sex ed curriculum decisions that are made on a school-by-school basis, and what's important is that they're offered consistent and accurate advice that offer inclusive guidelines. The 9 children I have had through JCPS have been to a variety of schools at all levels. This includes Brandeis Elementary, Lowe Elementary, Western, Mazik, and Westport Middle School, Manual, Eastern, Ballard, Phoenix, and Liberty High Schools. So I have a lot of experience with a variety of different schools within the system. And I will say, as a parent, I was always given the opportunity to understand what was being taught, when it was being taught, and to opt out if I chose to do so. However, as a professional and as a parent, I understand the value of this education. The fact that many people in this country do not understand how their bodies work. When I teach childbirth education, I have to explain to women what hole their baby will come out of. I am often asked with wide eyes, I have 3 holes down there? That is something that is basic anatomy. That's not opinion. How many holes our body has. We're born with orifices we're born with. I think it's important to understand that the guidelines being brought forth by the Louisville Sex Ed now are only meant to support the standards that are current in the Commonwealth. Teaching children a comprehensive sex education curriculum is something that's imperative. It's not going to encourage anyone to have sex. Though statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show us that about half of our high school students are having sex, and fewer than half of those are using a condom or birth control method every time. We know that sex education is something that can prevent sexually transmitted diseases, it can prevent future health problems, and it can also prevent teen pregnancy and unhealthy relationships. Students are able to learn communication and prevention in a comprehensive curriculum, and it allows students to focus on academics. What I think the key takeaway is that you understand that sex education taught now is a foundation for a lifetime of good health. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tyler Trabue. If I have not butchered your last name, did I say it right? I'm sorry, Tyler Trabue. Thank you. And while you're getting set, it's great to hear from medical professionals because there's been a long drought of sort of reality-based dialogue nationally, and nothing brings you back to earth like hearing from a doctor. So thank you. All right, Ms. Trabue, sorry for the editorial comment.
Hello, my name is Tyler Trabue. I'm a senior at Central High School. I'm here tonight to talk to you about why I support sex education and guidelines from Louisville Sex Ed Now. Having access to sex education has not only helped me learn more about basic biology, but healthy relationships and how to talk to my doctors and parents. Both my mom and dad have supported me getting sex education at school. I live with my dad, and I have found that since having sex education, it's become easier to have these type of conversations with him. He asked me lots of questions, and it's part of the conversation at school and at home. Before I had sex education, I did not have these conversations with my father. It felt weird because he was a man and I'm the youngest of 5. The communication skills I learned in my sex ed class have helped me overcome this barrier. It helped me in the classroom as I have new confidence in myself and with talking to people, mainly my peers. A lot of my teachers are supportive of the guidelines and me and my work to get accurate sex education information to my classmates. I have also found that this has helped me with my relationship. I am able to have an open conversation with my boyfriend, and I am better able to say what I want to do and what I don't want from relationships. Please look over these petitions we have brought tonight. Many have personal stories about why they support sex ed. Please know that these are all from Jefferson County. They support you and me and our push for these guidelines. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Sue Foster is signed up to speak here. You already spoke. You're going to say the same thing again?
It's on a different non-agenda item.
It's a different non-agenda item. Please come forward. Thank you very much. And you already know the rules about 3 minutes and all that, so I won't repeat them.
My coworkers say I like to hear myself talk, so this is it.
Thank you, and welcome
Actually,
again.
it's good news. We think it's good news. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I come bearing good news and glimmers of hope. As we prepare for the most wonderful time of the year, I felt it important to share with you a positive experience that Nutrition Services had the opportunity to experience and witness firsthand this past 3 weeks. We have often been burdened with the heaviness of negativity surrounding JCPS and its employment concerns, but recently Nutrition Services decided to step outside of the box and attempt a new method of recruiting and hiring for our kitchens. As the number of meals served to JCPS students increase, there is an increasing need for additional staff. Many times this has appeared as a daunting task, especially in the most eastern parts of our county. With the creation of 25 now hiring yard signs, we began a new outreach program geared towards individualized communities and schools. These signs were placed at Pacific school locations that are considered high priority and staffing needs for nutrition services. And wow, we have been amazed and overwhelmed with the responses from these communities. Within the first 48 hours, we had received over 200 phone calls from potential employees seeking additional information on how to become a part of Jefferson County Public Schools. To date, I have spoken with well over 500 individuals in that short time. Unlike the dangers that can often come from staffing agencies and temp services, these are folks who live within the specific school location communities, whose children, grandchildren attend or attended the schools. They are JCPS graduates, or they simply drive by that location every day as they leave their neighborhoods to other jobs. The most common statements we are hearing from our conversations have been, I have always wanted to work for JCPS, but didn't know where to start. And I love that school. It means so much to my family. So these applicants are career and college degreed individuals who desire to work for JCPS. By stepping outside of the box and reaching out to individual communities, we have now found a pool of future employees who possess the insight of each individual school's character, the makeup of their community, and their personal pride for their community school. Although we are beginning to reap some benefits of this recruitment tool now, we will know by the middle of January the true effects of the community outreach and partnership. But with a simple investment of $188 and the time given to talk one-on-one to each individual and not at them, we now find our spirits lifted by so many who truly desire to be a part of JCPS and nutrition services. In closing, happy holidays to all, and to all a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. I wish we could just let her words speak for the ending. You know, happy holidays to all, and to all a good night, but I think I have to say, is there a motion to adjourn? All right, Ms. Porter moves, Mr. Brady seconds, all in favor? It passes unanimously, and we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.